Hey there YouTube, what's up? My name is Aaron. I am a YouTuber, obviously. I make YouTube videos. It's usually about LGBT stuff or LGBTQIA. I'm not like a super woke person, just like figured I would do the whole moniker. But I'm an intersex person. I was born with persistent Mullerian duct syndrome. So, I was born with XY chromosome, but I have an SRY gene mutation, and because of that, I developed a condition or was born with a condition known as persistent Mullerian duct syndrome. In a nutshell, I was born externally male with a partial female reproductive system that contains a uterus and fallopian tubes. I have a lack of ovaries or a lack of presence of them. For many years, I lived as a male. I went through puberty blockers for a precocious puberty from 1999 through 2004. I lived as a guy very androgynously until about 19. Went through a short period of time of being hypermasculine, lifting weights, etc. Ended up going on testosterone blockers when I was 21, and at 22, I started a medication called estradiol. So I'm what you consider a typical, I was considered what you consider a typical trans woman. I don't know if my intersex condition played into my feelings of being a female, but today I'm making a video that I haven't talked about this topic in over a year, but I'll talk about it today. It's the topic of detransitioning and why people do it, and I'm just gonna dive right into it. So without further ado, I'm going to have just some relaxing waterfall music or waterfall sounds in the background, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk about detransitioning. So, I've medically transitioned pretty far, been on hormones for almost way over a decade, and I've been living as a female most of my life, adult life at least. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm truly getting diminishing returns out of my investment in my transition. That means that as time flies by, the older I get, the more times this earth has passed around the sun, my transition from male to female becomes less and less exciting. Then it got to the point where it's all I knew, and that lasted for about 10 years, and I lived basically what you would consider a very normal transgender woman life. And I lived as a female. I still currently am due to the way I look, but we'll be changing something soon. There's a lot of issues with woke ideology in the trans or the LGBT community as a whole. A lot of people think that a lot of people that are actually have, like, how to describe this? There's a decreased acceptance in trans people. There's a decreased acceptance of the LGBT community as a whole. Pardon my pause. I was actually receiving a call through my phone. But anyhow, there's a decreased acceptance, especially in the trans community. A lot of woke ideology is extremely hard to relate with, and because of that, in a nutshell, the LGBT community as a whole has had decreased acceptance. Now, how does this affect me, you may ask? And it affects me in the aspect that trans people have kind of made fools of themselves as a community as a whole, and allowing children to transition. And I'll give people, maybe there are there's non-binary people, but I don't believe it. It's not something that I can understand. It's not something I relate with. I don't understand how a singular person can go by they, them. And this is coming from someone who lived as a woman for 13 plus years as a trans woman. And through these diminishing returns that I receive emotionally, the older I get, the less the transition does for me. The transition maybe helps me escape some painful traumas. The transition I went through maybe helped me accept my own homosexuality. I think my transition did a lot of things. And I'm glad I transitioned in a lot of ways, in others, not so much. But I do believe it was a wonderful, wonderful learning lesson and truly let me see life for what it is for each gender. So I was accepted as a male by the world and accepted as a female by the world. And I'm in a position at this point where detransitioning is hard because I've developed breasts and I've been on hormones so long that I more or less look like a woman all around and looks like I was born one. I don't sound like it. I'm trying to talk as deep as I can because I am detransitioning. So I talked about detransitioning last summer. I went through this identity crisis about a year ago. Here's something that happened to me. I'm going to make it short, but it was really painful. I have a cousin. He's like a brother to me, but we don't see each other growing up a whole lot. He recently got married, and I was not invited to his wedding. And him and I used to play as little boys when we were growing up, like he was my cousin. And he doesn't call me, he doesn't text me, doesn't invite me to his wedding. If I am invited with my parents or family to a Thanksgiving at his house, and I text him after I leave, thank you for having me, I really enjoyed it, he never responds. I basically been completely blacklisted from my family, except my mom and dad, who through complaining at times to their brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, about the issues that I've caused because I transitioned and how I wish they wish so badly I could have been born happy as a girl or been born happy as a guy and not been born intersex, but that's unchangeable. I think ultimately they just want happiness for me. The issue I've dealt with is the fact that in me deciding to live male to female transgender woman complicated my life later in life. The first 5 to 10 years were amazing. It enhanced the quality of my life. It helped my gender dysphoria. I have so many benefits from it as I needed it. But now that those needs are diminishing on their own, and I'm coming to a point in my life where I have completely lost and been blacklisted a family, I'm hurt, very hurt. And I feel like the only thing to move forward in my life is to accept myself, accept my Lord, and I have believed in God my whole life, but just to live as my authentic self. And it's very hard for me to make myself look like a man. I enjoy having longer hair, and I actually have had longer hair most of my life, regardless of what gender I am. But I want to live as a male. I realize that you can't change your sex biologically. I biologically truly was born both. If there was a non-binary person, I truly am that. I am an intersex pseudo-hermaphrodite. And I do believe that that plays into why I transitioned. I had a lot of insecurities in tandem with my intersex condition, and always grew up feeling like a freak, and always kind of felt in the middle in genders, but leaned way more towards female. I'm unhappy with my life at this point. I've transitioned for 14 years, and it's brought me more pain than it's brought me benefits. It gave me the benefits when I needed them, but after I grew out of this stage in my life and am starting to see that, hey, I've been blacklisted, I've been cut off. I've been cut off from my friends as well that I grew up with. There's so many people that see me as a freak. And because of that, I feel that I don't really have any other option but to detransition. So, what does detransitioning mean to me? It's a very personalized experience, but for me, I continue to have long hair and probably will continue living on female hormones. For me, it would be more socially, like he, him pronouns and using the name Aaron as opposed to Camilla. I was born Aaron, I changed my name to Camilla, but my family has always called me Aaron, Eran. It's how it was spelled on my birth certificate. Um, and I've always let my parents call me Aaron, but I'm going to ask them to use he, him pronouns. And this is really hard for me because they've spent 14 years, basically 14 years validating my she, her identity. And now I'm asking to go back 14 years to go on back to he, him. It's like they worked so hard to accept me as a daughter. And now I'm asking them, I don't want to be your daughter anymore. So it's just throwing so much at them. Being an only child, when you're an only child, you're very connected with your parents generally, and you're truly an extension of your parents when you're an only child. I can't explain it, but it's like a slap in the face, I feel. But I need to understand for myself that maybe I'd be more accepted regardless of what I look like, that I just am being my biologically male self and trying my best to live as a man. I know that this video kind of sucks, and I'm aware the content and my delivery is very poor. My quality of mood is very poor. I'm going through a very bad time in my life where my dad is terminally ill. My mother suffers from some really bad untreated psychiatric issues, and I'm watching my dad fall apart. And I like to give him his son back before he goes to glory. And that's not going to happen. Hopefully this year, hopefully he has a year or two more with me. But at this point, I don't know what else to do but to give him his little boy back, because I truly feel bad for taking that away from him and my mom and my family and my friends. I realize that it truly is impossible to change your sex. Even someone born like myself, an intersex person, just because I have female parts, it doesn't have to identify, doesn't mean that I have to be a female just because I'm intersex, just because of my persistent Mullerian duct syndrome that I'm indentured into living as a female just because I have a uterus. It doesn't mean I have to be a female. Female to male trans people, trans men, they are born with a uterus and live as a man. So, I mean, I can live as a man too if I choose. I do believe that binding my chest, like putting a binder on, will be my intro to my detransition. Being able to look in the mirror and not see breasts would be absolutely wonderful. I feel like it would be a weight off of my shoulders to not have to see this anymore. I've always been shy of them because I have bigger breasts for a trans woman in general, and I get a lot of unwanted attention just from the way I look. I've been told my whole transition how pretty of a lady I am, and I do believe I am a pretty woman, but my gender identity is coming more and more back to male, and I want so badly to be accepted and to be loved, not be judged. The detransition for me, if it has to be just minor changes, that I will do this. I've had facial feminization surgery. I've had all of my facial hair permanently removed, so even if I go back on testosterone, I'll never grow facial hair again. I'm completely sterilized, so I'll never be able to have biological children. I think that informed consent is really messed up because 10, 15 years later after transitioning, some people are really unhappy with their results, like myself. I really feel like I got ripped off, and the pharmaceutical companies and doctors make a fortune off of people's misfortunes, like myself, someone with an identity crisis. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and end my video stating that next time I see you in video, or I should say you see me, hopefully I'll be wearing a binder, and that will be step one. I'm not sure when to tell my parents about my deciding to revert to male, but that I do believe it'll be happening soon, and I'm going to request it. I just have to use tact and, work on my timing and deliver at the proper time, because it's a lot. It's a lot to tell them. But for myself, I may start binding without telling anyone, just to see if anyone notices. Please subscribe and like this video, and I will see you next time.